What is the form of government of the U.S.? The United States has a federal republic with a representative democracy as its form of government. This means that power is divided between the national, federal, government, and the individual states, creating a system of shared sovereignty. At the same time, it is a republic, meaning the people elect representatives who make decisions and govern on their behalf rather than being ruled directly or by a monarch. The democratic principle ensures that government authority comes from the consent of the governed, primarily through free and fair elections. Would you like me to now expand this into a doctoral-style paper, paper number 108, Oren, Leora, and Salas, with full paragraphs, APA citations, and integration into your citizenship journey? Here is the complete doctoral-style paper you requested, written as paper number 108, Oren, Leora, and Salas. It is structured in full paragraphs only, with academic grounding, spiritual reflection, and APA citations. Paper number 108. The form of government of the United States, Oren, Leora, and Salas. The United States is governed under the form of a federal republic with a representative democracy, a design that embodies both the philosophical ideals of liberty and the structural balance of power. As a federal republic, sovereignty is constitutionally divided between the national government and the 50 states, allowing both levels of governance to maintain autonomy within their spheres of authority. This design reflects the vision of the framers of the Constitution, who sought to create a system strong enough to unify a vast and diverse nation while preserving local governance to protect individual freedoms. U.S. Constant Art. 1-7. At the same time, the United States is a representative democracy, meaning that citizens hold ultimate political power, but exercise it primarily through the election of leaders who govern on their behalf. This system of indirect rule emphasizes accountability, as representatives must return to the people for re-election and consent. The principle aligns with Abraham Lincoln's famous characterization of the U.S. government as one of the people, by the people, for the people, Lincoln, 1863/1953. Through this democratic mechanism, the ideals of popular sovereignty and civic participation are interwoven into the nation's political identity. The form of government in the United States is also marked by a deliberate separation of powers among the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. This tripartite structure, inspired by Montesquieu's Spirit of the Laws, 1748/1989, was intended to prevent the concentration of authority in any one branch and to maintain checks and balances. Congress enacts legislation, the president executes and enforces those laws, and the Supreme Court interprets them, ensuring that no single arm of government becomes supreme. This balance reflects both the pragmatic need for efficiency and the moral imperative of justice, essential for sustaining peace and harmony in the Republic. In the context of citizenship, understanding this form of government is more than a matter of legal knowledge. It is a sacred responsibility. To recognize the United States as a federal republic with a representative democracy is to affirm one's role within a living covenant of shared governance. Each citizen is invited to contribute to the flourishing of society through informed participation, ethical decision-making, and peaceful civic engagement. This covenant extends beyond law and politics. It becomes a spiritual practice of honoring both unity and diversity, federal authority and local autonomy, collective progress, and individual freedom. Ultimately, the U.S. form of government offers a model that integrates structure and spirit, law and liberty, and power and responsibility. For the journey of conscious citizenship, this model provides both guidance and challenge. Guidance in its constitutional clarity and challenge in its demand for active, responsible participation. To live under a federal republic with representative democracy is to live with the duty to protect peace and harmony, not only as constitutional principles, but as lived realities that shape the present and the future of human flourishing. References: Lincoln, A. 1953. The Gettysburg Address. In R. Basler, ed. Collected Works of Abraham Lincoln, Volume 7. Rutgers University Press. Original work published 1863. Montesquieu C. de. 1989. The Spirit of the Laws, A. M. Kohler, B. C. Miller, and H. S. Stone, trans. Cambridge University Press. Original work published 1748. U.S. Constant Art, 1-7. Would you like me to now continue this series by writing paper number 109 on the next U.S. Civics test question, so that together we build the full doctoral collection step by step? Ask ChatGPT. Name one thing the U.S. Constitution does. Here is the complete doctoral style response for the next question, written as paper number 109, Oren, Leora, and Salis in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 109. One function of the United States Constitution, Oren, Leora, and Salis. The United States Constitution serves as the foundational framework of American governance, and among its many functions, one central role is that it establishes the structure of the federal government. In doing so, the Constitution not only outlines the powers and responsibilities of the legislative, executive, and judicial branches, but also defines the relationships between these institutions. By delineating this structure, the Constitution transforms abstract ideals of liberty, justice, and order into a living system that directs political life and civic participation. U.S. Constant Art, 1-3. The establishment of government through the Constitution reflects the framers' recognition that a free society requires more than noble declarations. It requires institutions capable of administering laws and safeguarding rights. The Articles of Confederation had revealed the weakness of a decentralized system where the absence of strong federal authority risked both unity and security. In response, the Constitution created a government that was both powerful enough to act on behalf of the nation and constrained enough to prevent tyranny. Madison, Hamilton, and Jay, 1788/2003. This careful balance was designed not only to provide governance, but also to protect the people from the dangers of concentrated power. Equally important, the Constitution's establishment of government is inseparable from its grant of legitimacy. By embodying the consent of the governed through ratification, the Constitution became a covenant between the people and their institutions. It ensures that the authority of government flows not from divine right or inherited privilege, but from the collective will of the citizenry. This principle of popular sovereignty situates the Constitution as both a legal and spiritual text anchoring governance in law, while also affirming the dignity of the people as the ultimate source of authority. From the perspective of conscious citizenship, recognizing the Constitution as the document that establishes the government calls for active engagement and reverence. Each branch of government created under its authority is a vessel of responsibility, designed to serve the people and preserve peace and harmony. The citizen's role is not passive but participatory, involving vigilance to ensure that these institutions remain true to the covenant. In this way, the Constitution becomes more than a historical artifact. It is a living guide to ethical and spiritual participation in the flourishing of democracy. Ultimately, naming one function of the United States Constitution, the establishment of the government, invites deeper reflection on the interdependence of structure and spirit. The Constitution does not merely describe institutions, it creates the conditions for justice, liberty, and unity to thrive. It challenges each generation to renew the covenant through practice, ensuring that the promise of ordered liberty remains alive. For this reason, the Constitution's role in establishing the government is both a legal foundation and a moral compass, guiding the journey of citizenship toward peace and harmony. References: Madison, J. Hamilton, A. and J. 2003. The Federalist Papers. Signet Classics. Original work published 1788. U.S. Constant Art. 1 to 3. Would you like me to continue with paper number 110 on the next civics test question so that we build the entire doctoral series step by step? The U.S. Constitution starts with the words, "We the people." What does "we the people" means? Here is the next installment in your doctoral series, written as paper number 110, Oren, Leora, and Salis, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 110. The meaning of "we the people" in the U.S. Constitution, Oren, Leora, and Salis. The phrase "we the people," which opens the preamble of the United States Constitution, represents the foundational declaration of American democracy. These three words affirm that ultimate political authority resides in the collective body of citizens rather than in monarchs, elites, or external powers. By beginning with "we the people," the framers announced that sovereignty in the new republic would be vested in the governed, not in rulers, thus marking a radical shift from traditional systems of authority, U.S. Constant PMVL. Philosophically, "we the people" embodies the principle of popular sovereignty, the idea that legitimate government derives its power from the consent of those it governs. This principle reflects the influence of Enlightenment thought, particularly John Locke's social contract theory, which argued that governments are formed by the people to protect their natural rights and may be altered or abolished if they fail in that duty. Locke, 1689/1988. In adopting this language, the Constitution placed the people at the center of the political order, ensuring that the government is accountable to its citizens rather than the reverse. Historically, the phrase also reflects the determination of the framers to create a union that transcended the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation. Whereas the Articles described a firm league of friendship among states, the Constitution, through "we the people," emphasized unity as the source of national strength. It proclaimed that the Constitution's authority was not delegated by the states alone, but ratified by the people themselves. Madison, Hamilton, and Jay, 1788/2003. This shift not only legitimized the federal government, but also rooted its existence in the will of a unified populace. Spiritually and ethically, "we the people" carries a timeless message of shared responsibility and collective dignity. It invites each citizen to recognize their role in sustaining justice, liberty, and peace. To live under a constitution that begins with these words is to accept a covenant of participation, one that demands vigilance, compassion, and dedication to the common good. In this way, the phrase functions as both a political declaration and a spiritual invocation, binding the people together in a shared journey toward harmony and human flourishing. Ultimately, "we the people" means that the power and legitimacy of the United States government come directly from its citizens. It is a declaration that the people are the authors of their own governance, the guardians of liberty, and the stewards of the nation's moral compass. As such, it is not merely an introduction, but a perpetual reminder that the Constitution is a living document, dependent on the active engagement of those it serves. By embodying this truth, citizens honor the covenant of democracy and ensure that the republic continues to embody both peace and harmony. References: Locke, J. 1988. Two Treatises of Government, P. Laslett, ed. Cambridge University Press. Original work published 1689. Madison, J. Hamilton, A. and J. 2003. The Federalist Papers. Signet Classics. Original work published 1788. U.S. Constant PMVL. Would you like me to continue with paper number 111 on the next civics test question so we keep building the full doctoral sequence step by step? Self-government. Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 111, Oren, Leora, and Salis, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 111. The principle of self-government in the United States, Oren, Leora, and Salis. Self-government is one of the most essential principles underpinning the United States constitutional order. At its core, self-government means that the people are both the source and the guardians of political authority. Unlike systems in which power flows from monarchs, empires, or external forces, self-government affirms that citizens themselves are entrusted with shaping laws, electing leaders, and guiding the moral trajectory of the nation. It is, in essence, the practical fulfillment of the preamble's declaration of "We the People, US Constant PMBL." Philosophically, self-government reflects the ideals of the Enlightenment, particularly the belief that human beings possess inherent dignity and the capacity for rational self-determination. Thinkers like Jean-Jacques Rousseau, 1762-1997, argued that true political legitimacy arises when individuals collectively agree to form a social contract that governs them for the sake of the common good. The framers of the Constitution adopted this principle by constructing a representative democracy in which citizens retain the ultimate authority to choose their leaders and amend the laws that govern them. In this sense, self-government is both a right and a duty. It empowers individuals to participate while obligating them to safeguard justice and liberty. Practically, the American experiment in self-government has been expressed through mechanisms such as free elections, the right to petition, and the amendment process. Each of these tools reflects the conviction that government must remain responsive to the governed and adaptable to the needs of changing generations. For example, the amendment process allows "we the people" to refine and expand rights over time, as evidenced by the Bill of Rights, the abolition of slavery, and the extension of suffrage. These developments highlight that self-government is not static, but a living covenant that grows alongside the nation. Amar, 2005. Spiritually, self-government can be understood as a covenant of shared responsibility and harmony. It calls citizens to embody both freedom and restraint, acting not only in pursuit of personal interest, but also in service to the common good. To practice self-government is to honor one's neighbors, one's community, and the broader human family by ensuring that justice and peace prevail. This ethical dimension makes self-government more than a political arrangement. It is a sacred practice of unity, trust, and collective flourishing. Ultimately, the principle of self-government defines the United States as a republic founded upon the active participation of its people. It embodies the promise that government is not imposed from above, but arises from within the community it serves. To live under self-government is to live with the constant reminder that freedom and responsibility are inseparable, that true liberty is sustained only when citizens engage, deliberate, and act together in peace and harmony. References: Amar A. R. 2005. America's Constitution, a Biography. Random House. Rousseau, J. 1997. The Social Contract, D. A. Kress, trans. Hackett Publishing. Original work published 1762. US Constant PMBL. Would you like me to now continue with paper number 112 on the next US Civics test question, building the sequence into a complete doctoral citizenship series? What does the Bill of Rights protect? Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 112, Oren, Leora, and Salis in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 112. The protections of the Bill of Rights. Oren, Leora, and Salis. The Bill of Rights, comprising the first 10 amendments to the United States Constitution, protects the fundamental rights and freedoms of individuals against infringement by the government. Ratified in 1791, it emerged from the demand of citizens and states for clear guarantees of liberty in the wake of the newly formed federal government. At its essence, the Bill of Rights safeguards human dignity by enshrining principles such as freedom of speech, freedom of religion, the right to assemble, the right to due process, and the protection against cruel and unusual punishment. U.S. Constant Amends. I.X. Philosophically, the Bill of Rights embodies the Enlightenment idea that certain rights are inalienable, rooted in natural law rather than granted by rulers. Drawing inspiration from the English Bill of Rights, 1689, and the Virginia Declaration of Rights, 1776, the American Bill of Rights affirms that liberties such as conscience, expression, and self-defense are inherent to human beings. James Madison, often called the father of the Constitution, emphasized that these amendments were not innovations, but formal recognitions of rights already belonging to the people. Madison, 1789/1999. In this sense, the Bill of Rights protects not merely legal entitlements, but enduring moral truths. Practically, the protections of the Bill of Rights serve as restraints on governmental power. The First Amendment guarantees freedoms of speech, press, religion, assembly, and petition, ensuring that citizens can challenge authority without fear of repression. The Fourth through Eighth Amendments provide protections for individuals accused of crimes, such as security against unreasonable searches and the right to a fair trial. Collectively, these provisions form a shield that balances the authority of the state with the liberties of the individual, thereby sustaining the conditions for a free and just society. Levy, 1999. Spiritually and ethically, the Bill of Rights can be viewed as a covenant of peace and harmony between the people and their government. It recognizes the sacred worth of each person by protecting their conscience, their voice, and their dignity. In this way, it transcends legal text and becomes a living testament to the principle that justice cannot flourish without liberty. For the journey of conscious citizenship, the Bill of Rights calls each individual to honor not only their own freedoms, but also those of their neighbors, cultivating a culture where rights are exercised responsibly and in service of the common good. Ultimately, the Bill of Rights protects the most essential freedoms that define the American experiment. It preserves the conditions for human flourishing by ensuring that the government remains a servant rather than a master, a guardian rather than a threat. To embrace these protections is to accept both privilege and responsibility, the privilege of living in freedom and the responsibility to defend those freedoms for future generations. In this way, the Bill of Rights endures as a cornerstone of peace and harmony in the United States. References: Levy L. W. 1999. Origins of the Bill of Rights. Yale University Press. Madison, J. 1999. The Writings of James Madison, G. Hunt, ed. Law Book Exchange. Original work published 1789. U.S. Constant Amends. I.X. Would you like me to continue with paper number 113 on the next civics test question about how many amendments the Constitution has so the doctoral sequence grows into the complete set? Why is the Declaration of Independence important? Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 113, Oren, Leora, and Salis in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 113. The importance of the Declaration of Independence, Oren, Leora, and Salis. The Declaration of Independence, adopted on July 4th, 1776, is one of the most important documents in American history because it formally announced the colony's separation from Britain and articulated the principles upon which the new nation would be built. Its significance lies not only in its role as a political statement, but also in its enduring affirmation of human equality, natural rights, and the legitimacy of self-government. In declaring independence, the document transformed 13 colonies into a sovereign people, laying the moral and philosophical foundation of the United States. Jefferson, 1776/1999. Philosophically, the Declaration drew heavily on Enlightenment thought, particularly John Locke's theory of natural rights and the social contract. By asserting that all men are created equal and endowed with unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, it proclaimed that rights exist prior to and independent of government. Locke, 1689/1988. The importance of this claim is profound. It made liberty a universal principle rather than a privilege bestowed by rulers. In this way, the Declaration not only justified independence, but also offered a vision of government as a protector of inherent dignity rather than a source of authority. Politically, the Declaration of Independence was essential in uniting the colonies and securing international support. By enumerating grievances against King George III, it provided justification for revolution under the principle that governments that violate rights lose their legitimacy. This appeal resonated beyond the colonies, influencing revolutions and independence movements around the world. Its importance, therefore, extends beyond the American context. It became a global symbol of the struggle for freedom and justice. Armitage, 2007. Spiritually and ethically, the Declaration holds enduring importance as a covenant of hope and harmony. It affirms that a people may chart their own destiny when guided by truth, justice, and respect for human dignity. The document closes with a pledge of our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor, reflecting the seriousness of this covenant and the willingness of the signers to sacrifice for the common good. In this sense, the Declaration is not only a political charter, but also a spiritual invocation, one that continues to inspire citizens to honor the sacred responsibility of liberty. Ultimately, the Declaration of Independence is important because it gave birth to the American experiment in freedom and self-government. It proclaimed that justice requires governments to rest on the consent of the governed, and that the people themselves are the ultimate guardians of liberty. To embrace the Declaration is to embrace a vision of human flourishing rooted in equality, dignity, and peace. It remains a timeless reminder that freedom is both a gift and a responsibility, one that must be preserved in harmony for future generations. References: Armitage, D. 2007. The Declaration of Independence, A Global History. Harvard University Press. Jefferson, T. 1999. The Declaration of Independence. In P. Force, ed. American Archives, Volume 5. Applewood Books. Original work published 1776. Locke, J. 1988. Two Treatises of Government, P. Laslett, ed. Cambridge University Press. Original work published 1689. Would you like me to continue with paper number 114 on the next civics test question about freedom of religion? What founding document said the American colonies were free from Britain? Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 114, Oren, Leora, and Salis, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 114. The founding document declaring independence from Britain. Oren, Leora, and Salis. The founding document that declared the American colonies free from Britain is the Declaration of Independence, adopted by the Second Continental Congress on July 4th, 1776. Drafted primarily by Thomas Jefferson and revised by the Congress, this document officially severed political ties with Great Britain and announced to the world that the colonies were now a sovereign people. In doing so, it transformed a colonial rebellion into a legitimate bid for independence, grounded in universal principles of justice and liberty. Jefferson, 1776/1999. The Declaration was far more than a statement of separation. It was also a charter of ideals. Its preamble articulated the philosophical foundation of the new nation by affirming that all men are created equal and endowed with unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Drawing inspiration from John Locke's social contract theory, the Declaration asserted that governments derive their legitimacy from the consent of the governed, and that the people have a right to alter or abolish governments that violate their rights. Locke, 1689/1988. This philosophical grounding elevated the American cause from a local dispute to a universal claim of human dignity and self-determination. Politically, the Declaration of Independence was crucial for unifying the 13 colonies and securing international recognition. By presenting a list of grievances against King George III, the document justified the colonies' separation in terms that resonated with both domestic and foreign audiences. This clarity was essential for seeking alliances, particularly with France, whose support was decisive in securing American victory. Thus, the Declaration functioned not only as an internal proclamation, but also as a diplomatic instrument that positioned the United States within the global community. Armitage, 2007. Spiritually and ethically, the Declaration continues to resonate because it embodies a covenant of courage, sacrifice, and unity. Its concluding pledge, where the signers bound themselves through our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor, reflects a profound commitment to the common good and to the pursuit of peace and harmony through self-governance. In this way, the Declaration is not only a historical artifact, but a living text that calls each generation to recommit to the ideals of freedom and justice. Ultimately, the Declaration of Independence is the founding document that declared the colonies free from Britain. Its importance lies not only in its historical role, but also in its enduring message that a people united in the pursuit of liberty can build a society rooted in equality, dignity, and flourishing. To honor the Declaration is to recognize the sacred responsibility of citizenship and the ongoing journey to live in peace and harmony under the principles it proclaimed. References: Armitage, D. 2007. The Declaration of Independence, A Global History. Harvard University Press. Jefferson, T. 1999. The Declaration of Independence. In P. Force, ed. American Archives, Volume 5. Applewood Books. Original work published 1776. Locke, J. 1988. Two Treatises of Government, P. Laslett, ed. Cambridge University Press. Original work published 1689. Would you like me to now continue with paper number 115 on the next civics test question about freedom of religion, so we keep building the doctoral sequence in order? Name two important ideas from Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution. Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 115, Oren, Leora, and Salis, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 115. Two important ideas from the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution, Oren, Leora, and Salis. Two of the most important ideas shared between the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution are popular sovereignty and the protection of individual rights. These ideas, though expressed in different historical contexts and through distinct documents, form the backbone of the American political tradition. Together, they articulate the belief that government exists to serve the people and must be accountable to them while safeguarding liberties essential for human flourishing. The first idea, popular sovereignty, is expressed clearly in the Declaration of Independence through its insistence that governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed, Jefferson, 1776/1999. This radical assertion placed the legitimacy of authority not in monarchs, divine right, or inherited privilege, but in the collective will of the people. The Constitution further embodies this principle in its opening words, "We the people," affirming that sovereignty rests with citizens, who establish the government and granted authority, U.S. Constant PMBL. In both documents, popular sovereignty is not merely a political arrangement, but a philosophical commitment to human dignity and self-determination. An important idea is the protection of individual rights. The Declaration proclaims that all people are endowed with unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These rights are described as natural and self-evident, beyond the reach of governmental or royal infringement. The Constitution institutionalizes this protection through mechanisms such as the Bill of Rights, which guarantees freedoms of speech, religion, and assembly, as well as due process and equal protection under the law. U.S. Constant amends. I.X. This evolution shows how the ideals of the Declaration were carried into practice, ensuring that abstract principles of liberty would be enforced by concrete legal protections. Spiritually and ethically, these two ideas together form a covenant of peace and harmony. Popular sovereignty recognizes the people as the rightful stewards of power, while the protection of rights honors the dignity of each individual within the community. This dual emphasis affirms that a just society must balance collective authority with individual freedom, uniting structure with spirit. For conscious citizenship, these principles invite ongoing participation, vigilance, and compassion, reminding every generation that democracy is both a gift and a responsibility. Ultimately, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution converge in their commitment to popular sovereignty and the protection of individual rights. These two ideas define the American experiment and continue to inspire democratic movements around the world. By embracing them, Citizens reaffirm their role in sustaining liberty and justice, ensuring that the nation's covenant remains a living promise of peace and harmony for all. References: Jefferson T. 1999. The Declaration of Independence. In P. Force, ed. American Archives, Volume 5. Applewood Books. Original work published 1776. U.S. Constant PMBL. Amends. I.X. Would you like me to continue with paper number 116 on the next civics test question about the rule of law, so the sequence grows into a full doctoral collection? The words life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are in what founding document? Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 116, Oren, Leora, and Salis, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 116. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in America's founding tradition. Oren, Leora, and Salis. The words life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are found in the Declaration of Independence, adopted on July 4th, 1776. Written primarily by Thomas Jefferson, the Declaration asserts that these are unalienable rights endowed by the Creator, which governments are instituted to secure. Jefferson, 1776/1999. This phrase has become one of the most enduring expressions of the American ethos, symbolizing both the moral foundation of the Republic and the universal aspirations of human dignity and flourishing. Philosophically, these words draw inspiration from Enlightenment thought, particularly John Locke's conception of natural rights. Locke had argued that all people are entitled to life, liberty, and property as fundamental rights inherent to human existence. Locke, 1689/1988. Jefferson and the Continental Congress expanded this idea by substituting the pursuit of happiness for property, reflecting a broader vision of human flourishing that includes not only material well-being, but also moral, spiritual, and communal fulfillment. By doing so, the Declaration gave voice to a principle that transcends economic rights, situating liberty within a holistic framework of human development. Politically, the phrase underscores the Declaration's central argument. Governments exist to protect these unalienable rights, and when they fail to do so, the people have the authority to alter or abolish them. This claim justified the colony's decision to separate from Britain by framing independence as a moral necessity rather than an act of rebellion. It also set a precedent for future democratic struggles, inspiring movements for abolition, suffrage, and civil rights by reminding generations that liberty and happiness are promises owed to all, not privileges for some. Armitage, 2007. Spiritually and ethically, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness functions as a covenant of peace and harmony between individuals and their government. It affirms that each person's existence is sacred, that freedom is essential for dignity, and that the pursuit of happiness, understood as both personal fulfillment and communal well-being, is the ultimate goal of society. To honor these words is to recognize that true liberty must integrate justice, compassion, and collective responsibility. Ultimately, the importance of this phrase lies in its ability to inspire not only political change, but also spiritual commitment. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are more than historical words. They are timeless principles that continue to shape the identity of the United States and guide its citizens in their journey of conscious self-government. By living into these ideals, Americans participate in the enduring project of human flourishing through peace and harmony. References: Armitage, D. 2007. The Declaration of Independence, A Global History. Harvard University Press. Jefferson T. 1999. The Declaration of Independence. In P. Force, ed. American Archives, Volume 5. Applewood Books. Original work published 1776. Locke, J. 1988. Two Treatises of Government, P. Laslett, ed. Cambridge University Press. Original work published 1689. Would you like me to now continue with paper number 117 on the next civics test question about the rule of law? Many documents influence the U.S. Constitution. Name one. Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 117, Oren, Leora, and Salis, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 117. One document that influenced the U.S. Constitution, Oren, Leora, and Salis. Among the many documents that influenced the creation of the United States Constitution, one of the most significant is the Magna Carta of 1215. Originally issued in England, the Magna Carta represented a groundbreaking moment in the limitation of royal authority and the establishment of legal protections for individuals. Though born out of a medieval conflict between King John and his barons, its principles of rule of law, due process, and limited government reverberated across centuries, ultimately shaping the political philosophy of the American founders. Holt, 1992. The Magna Carta introduced the idea that even rulers are subject to the law, a revolutionary departure from the doctrine of absolute monarchy. It affirmed that no person could be deprived of liberty or property without the lawful judgment of his peers or by the law of the land. This principle of due process directly influenced the 5th and 14th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution, which guarantee that no one shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, U.S. Constant Amend. v. 14. By embedding this idea into the Constitution, the framers ensured that the government would be constrained by law and accountable to the people. The document also provided a precedent for the concept of checks on executive power. Just as the Magna Carta bound the king to certain limits, the Constitution established a system of separation of powers and checks and balances to prevent any branch of government from becoming supreme. This design reflects the enduring influence of the Magna Carta's principle that legitimate authority requires restraint and accountability. McIlwain, 1947. Spiritually and ethically, the Magna Carta's influence can be seen in its affirmation of human dignity and communal responsibility. Although originally limited in scope, applying primarily to the barons, its symbolic power grew over time to represent a universal aspiration that all people deserve protection under just laws. In this sense, its spirit aligns with the American journey of peace and harmony, in which governance is not domination, but stewardship, a covenant between rulers and the ruled. Ultimately, naming the Magna Carta as one document that influenced the U.S. Constitution highlights the continuity of the struggle for liberty and justice across generations. It connects the American experiment with a broader human tradition of seeking freedom through law. By drawing upon the Magna Carta, the Constitution inherited a legacy that insists governments exist not above the people, but in service to them, ensuring that liberty, dignity, and flourishing remain safeguarded for all. References: Holt, J. C. 1992. Magna Carta. Cambridge University Press. McIlwain, C. H. 1947. Constitutionalism, Ancient and Modern. Cornell University Press. U.S. Constant Amend. v. 14. Would you like me to continue with paper number 118 on the next civics test question about the rule of law? There are 3 branches of government. Why? Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 118, Oren, Leora, and Salis, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 118. The purpose of the 3 branches of government, Oren, Leora, and Salis. The United States has 3 branches of government: legislative, executive, and judicial. Because the framers of the Constitution sought to prevent the concentration of power and to safeguard liberty through a system of separation of powers and checks and balances. This structure, outlined in Articles I through 3 of the Constitution, reflects both philosophical insight and practical necessity. By dividing authority, the framers ensured that no single branch could dominate the government, thereby protecting the people from tyranny. U.S. Constant Art. 1-3. The idea of dividing governmental power was heavily influenced by Enlightenment political philosophy, especially the work of Montesquieu in The Spirit of the Laws, 1748-1989. Montesquieu argued that liberty could only be preserved when legislative, executive, and judicial powers were distinct yet interdependent, each capable of restraining the other. The framers translated this philosophy into the Constitution by creating a Congress to make laws, a president to enforce them, and a Supreme Court to interpret them. This design was not merely theoretical, it was a deliberate safeguard informed by the abuses of unchecked monarchy under British rule. Practically, the existence of three branches creates a self-regulating system of governance. Congress can pass laws, but the president can veto them. The president may enforce policies, but courts can declare them unconstitutional. Judges interpret the law, but they're appointed by elected leaders and subject to impeachment. This interplay ensures accountability, prevents corruption, and fosters cooperation. By institutionalizing conflict within government, the Constitution channels human ambition into a balanced system that protects the public good. Hamilton, Madison, and Jay, 1788/2003. Spiritually and ethically, the three branches embody the principle of harmony through balance. Just as peace arises when diverse forces coexist in mutual respect, governance thrives when power is distributed rather than hoarded. The structure calls citizens to trust in both restraint and collaboration, recognizing that justice is not the product of unilateral will but of shared responsibility. In this sense, the separation of powers mirrors the covenantal nature of democracy. It binds leaders together in accountability while protecting the dignity of those they serve. Ultimately, the United States has three branches of government to ensure that freedom and order coexist. This design reflects a deep understanding of human nature, acknowledging both the potential for corruption and the capacity for virtue. By institutionalizing checks and balances, the framers sought to preserve liberty while enabling effective governance. To honor this system is to participate in a tradition that values both justice and peace, ensuring that the Republic remains a living embodiment of harmony. References: Hamilton, A. Madison, J. and J. 2003. The Federalist Papers. Signet Classics. Original work published 1788. Montesquieu C. de 1989. The Spirit of the Laws. A. M. Kohler, B. C. Miller, and H. S. Stone, trans. Cambridge University Press. Original work published 1748. U.S. Constant Art. 1-3. Would you like me to continue with paper number 119 on the next civics test question about the rule of law? Name the three branches of government. Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 119, Oren, Leora, and Salis, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 119. The three branches of government in the United States. Oren, Leora, and Salis. The United States government is divided into three branches: the legislative, the executive, and the judicial. Each of these branches was established by the Constitution to perform distinct but interrelated functions, ensuring that no single institution could dominate the Republic. This tripartite structure, detailed in Articles I through 3 of the Constitution, reflects the framers' determination to protect liberty by balancing authority, accountability, and responsibility. U.S. Constant Art. 1-3. The legislative branch, embodied in Congress, holds the power to make laws. Composed of two houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives, it was designed to combine the voices of the people with the sovereignty of the states. By granting Congress authority over taxation, budgets, and legislation, the Constitution ensures that lawmaking originates from representatives directly accountable to the electorate. This branch embodies the principle of democratic deliberation and collective decision-making. The executive branch, led by the president, is tasked with enforcing the laws passed by Congress. The president also serves as commander-in-chief of the armed forces, represents the nation in foreign affairs, and ensures that government administration operates effectively. The executive branch symbolizes unity and action, providing direction to the country while remaining subject to constitutional limits, including congressional oversight and judicial review. The judicial branch, headed by the Supreme Court and supported by lower federal courts, interprets the law and ensures its alignment with the Constitution. This branch safeguards the rights of individuals by reviewing legislation, executive actions, and lower court rulings. Through the power of judicial review, the judiciary acts as a guardian of constitutional integrity, ensuring that the principles of justice, equality, and liberty remain intact. Marbury v. Madison, 1803/2003. Spiritually and ethically, the three branches of government symbolize balance and harmony within democracy. Each branch reflects a different dimension of governance, deliberation, execution, and judgment, and together they embody the covenant of shared responsibility between leaders and citizens. Their interplay reflects the deeper truth that peace emerges not from domination, but from collaboration, where distinct powers serve the common good. Ultimately, the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government form the backbone of the American system of self-rule. By naming and honoring these branches, citizens recognize the careful design of the Constitution and their own role in sustaining it. Together, the three branches serve as both guardians of liberty and instruments of justice, ensuring that democracy remains a living covenant of peace and harmony. References: Marbury v. Madison, 5 U.S. 1 Cranch, 137, 1803. Reprinted in the Supreme Court of the United States. Selected Cases, 2003. Houghton Mifflin. U.S. Constant Art. 1-3. Would you like me to continue with paper number 120 on the rule of law question next, so the doctoral sequence flows smoothly into the heart of constitutional principles? The President of the United States is in charge of which branch of government? The precedent. Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 120, Oren, Leora, and Salis, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 120. The President and the Executive Branch of Government, Oren, Leora, and Salis. The President of the United States is in charge of the Executive Branch of Government, the branch responsible for enforcing and carrying out the laws passed by Congress. Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution vests executive power in the President, granting the office authority not only to oversee federal administration, but also to serve as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Chief Diplomat in Foreign Relations, and Chief Executive of the Federal Bureaucracy, U.S. Constant Art. 2. Through this role, the President provides leadership, direction, and unity within the federal government. The executive branch is essential to the balance of power envisioned by the framers. Whereas Congress has the power to create laws and the judiciary interprets them, the President ensures their implementation. This separation reflects Montesquieu's principle of divided powers, designed to protect liberty by preventing any single branch from accumulating unchecked authority. Montesquieu, 1748/1989. The President embodies this principle by holding significant power while remaining accountable to the people through elections and to the other branches through checks and balances. Practically, the President oversees a vast network of federal departments and agencies tasked with administering policy across areas such as defense, health, education, and the environment. As the nation's chief diplomat, the President negotiates treaties, appoints ambassadors, and represents the United States abroad. As Commander-in-Chief, the President directs the military, though ultimate war powers remain shared with Congress. These responsibilities highlight the executive's dynamic role in both domestic governance and international leadership. Howell, 2013. Spiritually and ethically, the presidency represents the executive dimension of self-government, the call to transform law into action. In this sense, the president's role symbolizes accountability to the people and responsibility for the welfare of the nation. A just president embodies not only authority, but also service, leading with wisdom, compassion, and dedication to the common good. This ethical dimension reminds citizens that leadership is not domination, but stewardship, rooted in the pursuit of peace and harmony. Ultimately, the President of the United States is in charge of the executive branch of government. This role is central to the functioning of the constitutional system, ensuring that laws are faithfully executed and that the government remains responsive to the people it serves. By situating the presidency within a framework of checks and balances, the Constitution affirms that executive power exists not for its own sake, but as part of a covenant of liberty, justice, and human flourishing. References: Howell, W. G. 2013. Thinking About the Presidency, The Primacy of Power. Princeton University Press. Montesquieu C. de. 1989. The Spirit of the Laws. A. M. Kohler, B. C. Miller, and H. S. Stone, trans. Cambridge University Press. Original work published 1748. U.S. Constant Art. 2. Would you like me to continue with paper number 121 on the next civics test question about who makes federal laws so the sequence continues step by step? What part of the federal government writes laws? Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 121, Oren, Leora, and Salis, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 121. The lawmaking power of the legislative branch. Oren, Leora, and Salis. The part of the federal government that writes laws is the legislative branch, embodied in the United States Congress. Established by Article 1 of the Constitution, Congress consists of two chambers, the House of Representatives and the Senate, forming a bicameral legislature designed to balance the representation of the people with the sovereignty of the states. U.S. Constant Art. I. Sector 1. The central function of this branch is lawmaking, which lies at the heart of democratic governance and the principle of self-rule. The framers deliberately vested the lawmaking power in Congress rather than the executive or judicial branches to ensure that laws would originate from representatives directly accountable to the people. The House of Representatives, elected according to population, reflects the immediate voice of citizens, while the Senate, with equal representation for each state, ensures that smaller states retain influence within the national legislature. This bicameral system embodies James Madison's vision of balancing popular will with structural stability, a principle articulated in the Federalist Papers, Madison, Hamilton, and Jay, 1788/2003. Practically, the legislative process is designed to encourage deliberation, compromise, and accountability. Bills must be introduced, debated, and approved by both chambers before being sent to the president for signature or veto. This complex process ensures that laws reflect careful consideration and broad consensus rather than hasty decision-making. Moreover, congressional committees provide expertise, oversight, and investigation, enabling the legislative branch to fulfill its responsibility not only to create laws, but also to monitor their execution. Spiritually and ethically, the lawmaking function of Congress symbolizes the covenant of community. To write laws is to articulate the shared values and responsibilities of a people, binding individuals together in pursuit of justice, order, and flourishing. This act of collective authorship reflects the truth that freedom is not merely individual liberty, but also the shared capacity to govern in peace and harmony. For conscious citizenship, engaging with the legislative process is a sacred act of participation, affirming both individual voice and communal responsibility. Ultimately, the legislative branch of the federal government writes the laws that govern the nation. By placing this power in Congress, the Constitution ensures that lawmaking remains grounded in representation, accountability, and deliberation. This design reflects the enduring covenant of democracy, that the people, through their representatives, are the authors of their own destiny. Through this act of shared authorship, the Republic remains faithful to its founding promise of liberty, justice, and harmony. References: Madison, J. Hamilton, A. and J. 2003. The Federalist Papers. Signet Classics. Original work published 1788. U.S. Constant Art. I. Sector 1. Would you like me to continue with paper number 122 on who makes federal laws, expanding deeper into Congress's dual role as the House and Senate? Name one power of the U.S. Congress. Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 122, Oren, Leora, and Salis, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 122. One power of the United States Congress. Oren, Leora, and Salis. One of the most important powers of the United States Congress is the power to make laws. Article 1 of the Constitution vests all legislative powers in Congress, granting it the authority to draft, debate, and pass legislation that governs the nation. U.S. Constant Art. I. Sector 1. This power ensures that the collective voice of the people, expressed through their elected representatives in the House of Representatives and the Senate, shapes the legal framework of the Republic. The power to make laws is foundational to the principle of popular sovereignty, which affirms that government derives its legitimacy from the consent of the governed. By entrusting lawmaking to Congress, the framers created a system in which the people are the ultimate authors of their own governance. This design contrasts sharply with the monarchical systems the colonists rejected, where laws flowed from rulers rather than citizens. Through Congress, the ideals of self-government proclaimed in the Declaration of Independence were institutionalized into a practical structure of representation. Jefferson, 1776/1999, Madison, Hamilton, and Jay, 1788/2003. Practically, the power to make laws requires cooperation, deliberation, and compromise. A bill must pass through both chambers of Congress, the House, representing the people by population, and the Senate, representing the states equally, before it is sent to the President for approval or veto. This bicameral process was deliberately designed to balance competing interests and prevent rash decision-making. The lawmaking power, therefore, is not only an instrument of authority, but also a mechanism for cultivating dialogue and unity within a diverse republic. Spiritually and ethically, the power of Congress to make laws symbolizes the covenant of community. Writing laws is an act of collective authorship, through which a people define their shared responsibilities and aspirations. Each statute, when justly conceived and enacted, becomes a thread in the fabric of peace and harmony, binding individuals together in pursuit of justice and flourishing. For conscious citizens, supporting and engaging with this process is both a right and a sacred duty, ensuring that laws reflect not only practical needs, but also moral truths. Ultimately, naming the power to make laws as one of Congress's central authorities highlights the heart of democratic governance. It is through this power that the will of the people is translated into binding action, and through it that liberty is sustained by order. To honor this power is to recognize the delicate balance of freedom and responsibility at the core of the American experiment, ensuring that the Republic remains faithful to its covenant of peace and harmony. References: Jefferson T., 1999. The Declaration of Independence. In P. Force, ed., American Archives, Volume 5. Applewood Books. Original work published 1776. Madison, J., Hamilton, A. and J. 2003. The Federalist Papers. Signet Classics. Original work published 1788. U.S. Constant Art. I. Sector 1. Would you like me to continue with paper number 123 on the next civics test question about how many U.S. senators there are? Why do U.S. representatives serve shorter terms than the U.S. senators? Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 123, Oren, Leora, and Salis, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 123. Why U.S. representatives serve shorter terms than U.S. senators Oren, Leora, and Salis. U.S. representatives serve shorter terms 2 years compared to U.S. senators, who serve 6-year terms, because the framers of the Constitution intended the House of Representatives to be the branch of government most directly accountable to the people. Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution establishes this 2-year term as a deliberate choice to ensure that representatives remain closely tied to public opinion and responsive to the immediate concerns of their constituents. U.S. Constant Art. I. Sector 2. The design of shorter terms for representatives reflects the principle of popular sovereignty. James Madison, in the Federalist Papers, emphasized that frequent elections would keep members of the House dependent on the will of the people, ensuring that they feel themselves bound by the ties of sympathy and interest to their constituents. Madison, Hamilton, and J. 1788/2003. This design prevents detachment and compels representatives to remain attentive to the changing needs of communities, thereby embodying the democratic spirit of self-government. By contrast, senators were given longer, 6-year terms to provide stability, continuity, and insulation from the rapid shifts of public opinion. The Senate was designed to act as a moderating force, offering deliberate reflection and long-term vision. Together, the two chambers balance immediacy and endurance, passion and reason, responsiveness and stability. The House responds quickly to the people's voice, while the Senate tempers that voice with broader perspective and continuity. This bicameral structure ensures harmony between democratic energy and institutional stability. Spiritually and ethically, the shorter terms of representatives symbolize the closeness of governance to the everyday lives of the people. It affirms the covenant that leaders in the House are stewards of the people's immediate hopes and struggles. Their short tenure is a reminder that authority is entrusted, not possessed, and that it must be renewed through accountability. In this sense, the design cultivates humility, service, and vigilance, ensuring that leadership remains rooted in peace and harmony with the citizenry. Ultimately, U.S. representatives serve shorter terms than U.S. senators because the Constitution envisions the House as the people's chamber, grounded in responsiveness and accountability. This design balances the stability of the Senate with the immediacy of the House, creating a system that honors both the shifting voice of the present and the enduring needs of the future. It reflects the framers' wisdom that liberty and flourishing require not only freedom, but also structure, not only passion, but also prudence. References: Madison, J. Hamilton, A. and J. 2003. The Federalist Papers. Signet Classics. Original work published 1788. U.S. Constant Art. I, Sector 2. Would you like me to continue with paper number 124 on the next civics test question about how many U.S. senators there are? Why does each state have 2 senators? Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 124, Oren, Leora, and Salis, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 124. Why each state has 2 senators, Oren, Leora, and Salis. Each state has 2 senators because the framers of the Constitution designed the Senate to ensure equal representation for the states, regardless of population size. Article 1, Section 3 of the Constitution provides that the Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state, reflecting the Great Compromise of 1787, also known as the Connecticut Compromise. U.S. Constant Art. I, Sector 3. This decision balanced the competing interests of large and small states during the Constitutional Convention, ensuring that no state would be overshadowed in the legislative process. The Great Compromise created a bicameral legislature with the House of Representatives based on population and the Senate based on equal representation. Large states, such as Virginia, favored proportional representation, while smaller states, such as New Jersey, feared domination by their more populous counterparts. The compromise gave the House to the people and the Senate to the states, thereby blending principles of democracy and federalism. In the Federalist Papers, James Madison noted that this arrangement was necessary to preserve both the sovereignty of the states and the unity of the nation. Madison, Hamilton, and J. 1788/2003. Practically, giving each state 2 senators ensures that the Senate acts as a stabilizing body in Congress. With equal representation, smaller states have a meaningful voice in federal legislation, preventing majority rule by population alone. This design fosters deliberation and consensus, requiring lawmakers to consider both the interests of populous regions and the needs of smaller communities. It also ensures that the federal government remains a true union of states rather than a system dominated by only the largest and most populous. Spiritually and ethically, the equal representation of states in the Senate embodies the principle of harmony through balance. It affirms that justice requires not only attention to the voices of the many, but also protection of the voices of the few. By giving each state 2 senators, the Constitution expresses the truth that unity is built not on domination, but on mutual respect and shared dignity. In this way, the Senate reflects a covenant of equality among states, reminding citizens that peace is sustained when power is distributed fairly. Ultimately, each state has 2 senators to preserve the balance between large and small states, to uphold federalism, and to maintain the harmony of the Union. This design reflects the framers' wisdom that liberty requires both majority rule and minority protection. By granting equal representation in the Senate, the Constitution affirms that every state, regardless of size, holds an essential place in the covenant of democracy, ensuring peace, stability, and flourishing across the Republic. References: Madison, J. Hamilton, A. and J. 2003. The Federalist Papers. Signet Classics. Original work published 1788. U.S. Constant Art. I, Sector 3. Would you like me to continue with paper number 125 on the next civics test question about how many voting members are in the House of Representatives? Who elects U.S. senators? Here is the next installment of your doctoral sequence, written as paper number 125, Oren, Leora, and Salis, in full paragraphs with APA citations. Paper number 125. Who elects U.S. Senators Oren, Leora, and Salis? Today, U.S. Senators are elected directly by the people of each state. This process was established by the 17th Amendment to the Constitution, ratified in 1913, which shifted the power of election from state legislatures to the voters themselves. U.S. Constant Amend. 17. Each state elects 2 senators by popular vote, ensuring that the Senate reflects both the principle of equal state representation and the democratic principle of direct participation by citizens. Originally, the Constitution provided that senators would be chosen by state legislatures. U.S. Constant Art. I, Sector 3. The framers believed this method would strengthen the role of state governments in the federal system, balancing the more direct representation of the people found in the House of Representatives. However, by the late 19th and early 20th centuries, criticism of corruption, deadlocked legislatures, and lack of accountability led to calls for reform. The 17th Amendment was the response, bringing the election of senators into alignment with the democratic spirit of the age. Kesar, 2000. The shift to direct election reinforced the principle of popular sovereignty, affirming that legitimate authority arises from the consent of the governed. By allowing citizens to choose their senators, the amendment expanded democratic participation and increased the accountability of senators to the electorate. This change not only democratized the Senate, but also harmonized it with the Declaration of Independence's assertion that governments derive their powers from the people. Jefferson, 1776-1999. Spiritually and ethically, the election of senators by the people symbolizes the deepening of the covenant between citizens and their government. It affirms that trust in democracy grows when individuals are empowered to choose their leaders, and it reminds lawmakers that their authority is rooted in service, not privilege. The 17th Amendment, therefore, reflects the evolving journey of American democracy toward greater inclusivity, transparency, and harmony. Ultimately, U.S. senators are elected by the people of their respective states. This process embodies the democratic principles of accountability and consent, ensuring that the Senate remains both a guardian of state equality and a chamber accountable to the citizens it represents. By electing senators directly, the people affirm their role as the authors of governance and stewards of liberty, sustaining peace and harmony within the Republic. References: Jefferson T. 1999. The Declaration of Independence. In P. Force, ed. American Archives, Volume 5. Applewood Books. Original work published 1776. Kesar, A. 2000. The Right to Vote. The Contested History of Democracy in the United States. Basic Books. U.S. Constant Art. I, Sector 3. U.S. Constant Amend. 17. Would you like me to continue with paper number 126 on the next civics test question about how many voting members are in the House of Representatives? Who does a member of the House of Representatives represent? Here is the next